What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Rearing Reptiles. Today we're going to be kind of doing a follow-up video to TC's video about importing animals and why he doesn't sell wild-caught animals. You're watching Rooted in Reptiles, where you will find a ton of quality, evidence-based reptile keeping and captive breeding information. Should not be sold for pets. It just doesn't make any logical sense to me at all why wild-caught animals are sold for pets only. Those animals are not helping anything by becoming a pet. They're taken from the wild and they go to a home with a 6-year-old child whose parents wanted to get them a cheap pet because they don't want to spend the money because they're 6 years old. So instead of just telling them no, they went and bought something wild-caught from a show or offline without doing research and without realizing the amount of money that they're going to spend to get this animal into decent health. And by the time they spent that hundreds of dollars at the vet to treat for the parasites and to treat for maybe skin issues or mouth issues or respiratory issues, they could have just bought their 6-year-old child a captive bred animal of quality genetics that is in perfect health. But when they're wild caught, they don't understand, they don't get why they went from being able to travel huge distances to now being able to travel back and forth from the end of a 40 breeder to the other end of a 40 breeder, to the front of a 40 breeder, and to the back of a 40 breeder, which is not the wild. You can put, I'll put you back. That's not anything remotely close to what the wild was like. That animal there is wild caught. You can see that, she's fairly calm for being wild caught, but this is captive bred, and this is a baby. This animal's just hanging out, it's willing to chill. And that's great. You can see right there from one hand to the other, the difference from an animal. And that animal has been in captivity for, I want to say, I think offhand without looking back and checking, I want to say like 18-ish years she's been in captivity now. And you can see she is still, that's calm to me. That is calm. But this, for a captive bred animal, is calm. This is hanging out and just chilling. So that was a great visual for you guys, and that's kind of why I pulled her out and pulled one of her babies out. These babies, the father is captive bred, but their mother is wild caught. So, you can just see how relaxed this animal is, which is great. That's what I wanted to show to everyone today, is just the difference between the two. Another thing that I wanted to touch on that I don't think that TC mentioned in his video was something that I heard from Tom Crutchfield, and I'm not by any means an incredible Tom Crutchfield fanboy, but I don't necessarily agree with some of the stuff that Tom has done in his life or in the past, but that's in the past, and I'm not judging him for that. But one thing that I heard in an interview with him was conservation through captive propagation, or conservation through propagation, which means that if you want to conserve animals in the wild, you have to produce them in captivity. It's one thing that TC didn't touch on that I will, is greed. To me, a lot of importation for pets is done out of greed. Those animals are bought and sold for the purpose of making money. They are shipped in the day before a show, and then they are thrown in show cages, and then they're sold at shows. There's no quarantining, there's no health checks, they are literally out of a crate into a show box into the arms of a pet owner within 48 hours, which is sad. I mean, that is sad. It makes me sad to go to shows and see kids, just being able to walk up to an importer's stand and just buy whatever they have money for. And it's nice that, we live in a country that's free, especially in Pennsylvania. Our reptile laws are more lax than other states. And the fact that we don't necessarily need permits to buy or to breed animals, but on the same note, what is a 12-year-old going to do with their wild-caught animal that they just bought? Like, nothing. I don't think that TC touched enough on the money driver for importation. Importers, they're in the business of making money. That's why you run a business. You don't run a business or form a business around the idea of losing money, because it takes money to run a business. So I understand, why these importation guys and import vendors do what they do. They gotta maintain a business to survive, which is okay. I get it. I like doing business myself. I get the idea of survival. However, I think that there could potentially be the ability to better what they're doing. They can import animals and then say, what are your intentions for this animal? Just something as simple as asking that question, what are you intending to do with this animal? Could potentially save a lot of heartache and headache. It could potentially save that animal's life. It could potentially help the conservation of that species of animal in the wild. And that's just something simple. They don't have to be like the reptile police and say, what are you doing with this? But they could just say, what are your intentions? I appreciate you having interest in my animal, and it would be great for me to sell this animal. However, I don't necessarily believe that this is the right animal for you. Which is, like TC said about these importers breeding animals. It would be great for that importer with good quarantine procedure and to be able to redirect and say, look, I get that you see this, and I get that you like this because it's cheaper than that, but let me take you down and show you that and show you why that is better than this for you. It's not better than it in a life perspective. It's not better than it in a perspective of the value of that animal's life. It's better for you in your abilities as a reptile keeper. It's better for you in what you're interested in doing with that animal. If you want your 6-year-old to be able to handle this animal and enjoy it, this is better. If you don't want to have to pay for the vet bills to properly care for this animal, this is better for you. This is cheaper long run. This is cheaper, from the start. Long run, I always look at long run. To me, long run is great because I would rather front the money, know that I have that money to front now, and then it's much less of a headache for me down the road to have to say, oh my gosh, now I have $1,000 in vet bills this week alone because of these imported animals. That doesn't stop me from working with imported animals. I'm looking to buy some imported animals right now, but I'm looking to do that because I want to propagate those animals. I want to better help the reptile hobby through captive propagation. I don't own pets. That's something that I refuse to do. The only animal or the only animals that we own here in this house as pets is our 3 dogs. We don't own chickens for pets. We don't own goats for pets. We don't own ducks for pets. We don't own rabbits for pets. Everything has a purpose. We don't own reptiles for pets. That's just not what I'm interested in doing. There's nothing wrong with owning an animal as a pet, like our dogs, but what am I doing to better the community by owning a bunch of pet skinks that never do anything? You know, that I can't give back to the reptile community. And sure, I'm going to make money doing that. There's no doubt about it, and I'm not going to try and tell you that I'm not going to. But I believe that captive propagation is the key to conservation. I do, hands down. It's something that at that point, I saw that interview years and years and years ago now, and some of you might remember it. I don't know exactly when I watched it or when the video was made, but that point has stuck with me since the day that I watched it. From that very moment, it was like, I get it. You know, I understand, you know, what you're saying, because it's so obvious. You know, you're gonna conserve animals in the wild by breeding them in captivity, because they don't have the need to import those animals anymore. They might be more expensive being captive bred and born. However, it is better for the world as a whole to buy those captive bred and born animals that aren't being pulled from the wild. You know, there are certainly a lot of species that we see that were imported but are now on the CITES list of endangerment, you know, because a lot of it is due to the reptile trade. One of those things, it's an invertebrate, the emperor scorpion. I remember when I was younger, at 16, I was breeding scorpions. I had, I don't know, 60 of them or so, something like that. And on Arachnoboard, there was chatter about emperor scorpions being like the importation of them was going to stop because of this inability for them to produce fast enough to keep up, because they were sold as like the beginner scorpions, emperor scorpions. And I remember reading that, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I should buy up as many emperor scorpions as I can, because if they stop importing them, they're just going to go through the roof. You know, and the desire for those is always going to be there. But, you know, being young and dumb, I didn't, and I kick myself for it every day now, because that's something that I could have done to give back. You know, I could have sold, even if I didn't want to keep those animals, I could have sold them to someone else who was going to breed emperor scorpions in order to be able to sell to the arachnid collectors and people interested in arachnids. But I don't know, you live and learn, you know, so I try and not make those mistakes again. Holmes hingeback tortoises were something that were able to be imported, and they're now on the CITES list. It's another one off the top of my head. I ended up selling my group of Holmes hingeback tortoises to Austin because I wanted him to be able to have all the animals there to breed with his animals, because I figured, you know, if we split the group up, you know, it's going to be harder for us to both individually get them to reproduce versus as one large group. So I said, you know what, I'm interested in them, but it makes more sense to me for you to keep them than for me to bring them up here. I think that his conditions in Arizona are better for them, and I think that that's just the way it is, you know. So I try and live within my means. I try and work with animals that make sense for where I live and for the conditions that I can provide for them. But, you know, that's, again, another topic for another day. And if you haven't checked out Reptile Mountain's channel, it's a great channel, and you know, he's certainly taken off on YouTube, and he's doing a lot of good, honestly. He really genuinely is doing a lot of good for the reptile community, especially for blue-tongued skinks, because he's very well educated himself, and he's very good at teaching. You know, so absolutely go over there, and if you haven't subscribed to him, subscribe to him. I'll try and link his channel in the description. I think I should be able to do that, but you know, at the very least, I'll try and link his information in there for you to check out. So with that, you know, I'll quit my rambling. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you guys next time.